Hello, BookTube. In the wake of a popular hashtag that was going around Twitter about 10 rules for writing, I noticed another hashtag going around with 10 rules for encouraging teen writers. And I was immediately attracted to that because I have encouraged a great number of teen writers myself in my lifetime and developed a whole bunch of thoughts on what is and is not good to do along those lines. And just this morning, I saw a response to that hashtag by Joanne Harris, who is a massively best-selling author. Most of you probably read Chocolat, but she's written lots and lots of other stuff. And also has a long career teaching, the very demographic that she's talking about. So I was naturally interested in her 10 rules. And I thought, I jotted them down. I thought we'd go over them first and then talk about them a bit. So her rule number 1 is support their reading choices. Don't try to impose your taste or your idea of quality. Rule number 2 is support their experiences. Don't trivialize the things they find important or try to steer them towards quote-unquote issues. Rule number 3 is don't force them to share their work or publish it or push them to self-publish it if they don't want to. Let them control their own development. Rule number 4 is listen to their voices. Encourage them to believe that their own authentic voice is unique and valuable. Rule number 5 is don't make jokes about them being, quote, the next J.K. Rowling, or link their writing to the idea of making money or getting a job. Let them enjoy their writing without any kind of pressure like that. Rule number 6 is keep in lane. I want to point out there that it's Joanne Harris who left out anything else in that line. It's just keep in lane. Don't use creative writing as an excuse to correct their grammar or try to improve their vocabulary. Rule number 7 is don't assume that that making comics, designing games, or making up sketches doesn't count as writing. Rule number 8 is don't criticize silliness. Silliness is as potentially as creative as tragedy. Rule number 9 is make sure they have the right facilities, a room of their own, software of their choosing, new notebooks, anything like that. And rule number 10 is don't discourage fan fiction. Fandoms are often very important to young writers, and the last thing they need is for you to tell them that it isn't quote-unquote proper writing. And those were the top 10 rules for encouraging teen writers that came to Joanne Harris's mind. And I've been thinking about them for a while, and because this is an author I respect, and her fiction isn't quite in the register that really pumps my own pistons, but I acknowledge that she has earned her enormous fan base. And yet these 10 rules largely disturb me, and I'm wondering if you can see why. There's actually a thread that connects all but one of these rules. There's a thread that connects 9 out of 10 of these rules, and it's a thread I couldn't disagree with more. I can't help but view it as a kind of philosophical underpinning for the whole. And it's disturbing to me that it comes from someone who not only has years and years of experience with writing, but years and years of experience with teaching. And that thread is no teaching. The thread underlying almost all of these rules is don't you dare teach anything. Encourage them in anything they do. Encourage them to take their own route. Encourage them to think about their writing in any way that they want. Encourage them that their own voice is unique and valuable. Just step all the way back and basically watch. Except for rule number 9. Rule number 9 is fantastic. Make sure they have all the stuff they need. That's a fantastic rule, and it's often overlooked. Too often. Because, we're in the throes of NaNoWriMo at the moment. National Novel Writing Month. My own NaNoWriMo is chugging right along. I anticipate winning this year. I anticipate reaching 50,000 words. But when you're in the middle of NaNoWriMo and you're down to brass tacks, where it's no longer, the scone must be perfect and the morning night and a feather quill pen. When you're down to brass tacks of getting your words done every day, you suddenly realize how important all of the stuff is. Not the perfect scones or the tea Earl Grey hot or any of the ways of flouncing while writing, but the actual stuff of writing. Where is your desk? What is your computer program if you're writing on your computer? What kinds of stuff are you using to create as little friction as possible between you and getting the words out. So, number 9 is great, and number 9 is active. It encourages someone to take an active role in teen writers by making sure they have everything they need. And maybe, I'm extrapolating here because it's not in that rule, but it's the thing that I love to do, is to talk to teen and young writers, not just about, do you have everything you need? Can I get you, if you don't have the money for Scrivener or whatever, can I give the money to you? Or if you don't have a quiet space to sit and work, can I offer you a quiet space to sit and work? There's a couch right over there in the corner. Feel free. Come here anytime you like. Stay as long as you like. That sort of thing. But in addition to that, that's great on its own, is to do that. That I have done that many times. Most writers should do that. Most people should do that. But aside from that, one of these rules I just flatly deny. It's categorically wrong. And that is, don't assume that making comics, designing games, or making up sketches doesn't count as writing. None of those things count as writing. That's why they have names of their own. That's why they have descriptions of their own, because that's what they are. And when you say they count as writing, you denigrate both writing and them. What is it again? Designing games does not count as writing. If by writing, and I assume that this is what the whole thing means, if by writing we mean generating coherent prose of non-flash fiction length, coherent prose that develops over a certain amount of reading time. I feel certain that that's the kind of writing that Joanne Harris thinks of when she first thinks of writing. I don't think she thinks of writing games, or writing comics, or writing sketches. Again, that seems to me, that is completely wrong. Those things are definitionally not writing. But in addition to that, it seems to me to soak up the atmosphere of whatever the little potential litigants do is perfectly okay. It's perfectly all right the way it is. What was that other one? Keep in lane. First of all, says who? and who says what the lane is? Keep in lane implies there's only one lane, and that some people are authorized to travel on it and others aren't. But what is it? Don't use creative writing as an excuse to correct their grammar or try to improve their vocabulary. As if grammar and vocabulary aren't part of creative writing. As if the little potential litigant is supposed to just speak in incoherent tongues, and you're not supposed to do anything about it. Nothing at all. Keep in your lane. There's a lane for people who will teach them about grammar and vocabulary. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I have learned over the course of many years of doing this, not appreciated by the actual young potential litigants. They don't appreciate when you coddle them like that. Most of the young writers that I've met want to know if they're using a word wrong. They want to know that. And if your advice is not to tell them, keep in your lane, never mind about correct grammar, then what are you doing? You're building up problems for them down the line instead of addressing things in the intimate, encouraging setting where they will do the most good. No. But also that bit about, encourage them that their own authentic voice is unique and valuable. As I've mentioned on this channel a few times, one of the hardest things for writers to come across is their own voice. It takes lots and lots of trial and error. You don't have it when you first start out, except for the odd freakish exception. Not every single one of these thousands of potential litigants is going to be that freakish exception. Most people need a lot of trial and error. They need a lot of hunting around before they find their voice. And then they have to have the inner fortitude to trust that voice. Because there's a little side note here, but once you find your actual voice, the actual authentic voice that you write in, you must never write in anything else. Not unless there is a literal pile of money on the table. If somebody pushes a pile of money towards you, not a piece of paper with a number on it, and not a small pile. If somebody pushes a huge pile of ready hard currency at you, then maybe consider intentionally writing in a voice not your own. But otherwise, don't ever do it. And you'll find that you don't need to. Your voice is not a matter of genre. It's not a matter of style. Once you find it, you'll use it everywhere. And the reason why I say don't ever abandon it, don't ever not use it, is simple. It's what you're here for. Because that treacly bit about unique and valuable is absolutely true. Your voice is yours alone. Your style, your genre, your mannerisms might not be, but your voice is yours alone, and that's what you're here for. You get this one tiny little window for that voice to be heard. So you have to fill that little window with that voice. But that was my main response to these 10 tips. I mean, they're good in their way. Don't force people to self-publish or to share their work. Don't discourage fan fiction, that sort of thing. I agree with all of that. I guess it's the casting of them that I don't like. The casting of them as, all the little potential litigants are already full-blown, extremely practiced geniuses. They already know exactly everything they need to do. The most you can do is buy them some notebooks and get out of their way. That abandons the role of teaching, and I feel certain that Joanne Harris in her teaching career did not do that. That abandons the responsibility. A teacher is supposed to wade in and get involved. And the assumption is supposed to be, on both the teacher's part and the young teen's part, that a lot of that getting involved is warranted. That a large chunk of that getting involved is to help you take what you have learned and help them to avoid making time-consuming mistakes. So that business about, don't bother to point out grammar or syntax errors, vocabulary errors. Anyway, I just wanted to, I didn't know how many of you might have seen these hashtags going around. And the writing hashtags on Twitter are always interesting. I always want to weigh in. For some reason, this one got me going. Because I don't believe, in this particular case, I think there's hypocrisy involved. I don't believe that a teacher who was as experienced and as beloved as Joanne Harris was, ever followed most of these rules. I think they are contoured for a later mind frame, the current 21st century mind frame, in which imposing any kind of authority or stricture on anyone under the age of 20 will result in a lawsuit and a social media firestorm that causes you to be fired, to lose your house, to lose your mortgage, to lose your loved ones, and maybe to lose your life, certainly to have your children's school bus schedules published online. I think that there's an element of that involved in a list like this, because the list abrogates teaching. And so I thought I would respond, not on Twitter, of course. that would just bring out the crazies. But right here, with crazies I already know and love. So I'll wrap this up. But just food for thought. I'll post the rules down below so you can mull over and disagree with me. And I'll be back, of course, with more. Thank you, BookTube.